Hunter, your host, and how's it going? It is Thursday. It's Thursday, Matt? Thursday, April 3rd. Yeah, Tuesday was the 1st. And we're back roasting here in the workshop on the Giesen W6A. Gonna load in and, oh shoot. Almost missed that one. Now we're away. Keone, aloha to you, and Kent, how's it going? Power plant, good morning as well, and Dev, good morning out there in Honolulu. Power plant, actually, don't you use a timer or something? I have the force. I have been training. Well, many years ago, I had midichlorian counts done by these specialists, and perfectly fine. Not quite like Skywalker, but pretty darn good. So I don't really need a timer because I got the intuition, but sometimes we use a timer, right? So I just do it with a lot of, I'm very suavecito when it comes to this thing, right? All right, let's try to refill. We are making our espresso again. This time we're using some natural processed coffee. This is natural processed coffee here. Right. Welcome, good morning to you. So what we're doing is we're doing 15-pound batches. And we're doing 27% of the natural and then 73% of a semi-wash. Very well be our last batch of this. So here we go, we got that all together. And now I'm going to load this back into the hopper so that we're ready for the next run. All right. George, good morning to you. Power plant says, how bad is the rain? The rain today is not so bad. You can see the rain here just throughout outside the shop, and no, it's been relatively light. There was a little bit light, steady earlier. Matt is rough cutting, dimensioning white oak lumber out there. So, but right now it is kind of stopped. So that's kind of nice. And how high humidity here is not too bad. Like I don't really feel it. Humidity though. I can tell you, 62%. So typically I'm at least just logging things like ambient temperatures. Like right now it's 71.3. When we started, it was 61 degrees. And then humidity, 62%. Just not that necessarily changes how we do things in the roastery. Mainly it's just more about logging things in case we do run into some issues. Then we can, look at these are just some of the things we can look back and correlate on how to see how might those have affected the roast in case there is an issue. I'll ask, one of the sad parts about Sakura season is that the warmer weather almost always brings rain, and that in turn, oh yeah, that's true. We're gonna do a Sakura episode one day because there's some nice trees right by my house and right by where I live, and so we're gonna maybe sit out there one day and have Sakura and coffee. But the thing is that here, while Washington D.C. has already had their blooming and blossoms, we haven't had any up here in Baltimore yet. So, have you seen any cherry blossoming yet, Matt? Oh, you have. But around here, I haven't seen any. Oh, the city's crazy. Oh yeah. That was the nice thing with our Hamden shop is that we had a lot of cherry blossoms on the street, so you could see a lot of that. All right, so now we got our coffee here. In that time that I've been doing it, it's already cooled down enough, so I'm just gonna open that up and let it come on out. 15 pounds is going to be right around 13 pounds of finished coffee. So yeah, there it is, the Giesen. So we're running 2 batches at a time, right? So we've got coffee here that's cooled and now it's coming out. There's a batch in the roaster at the moment, roasting, right? So where are we now? We're 6 minutes into the roast. So we're just getting into the yellowing phase, getting into tanning. And then we also have a third batch up here ready to go. So I like it when we can, and I like roasters where you can like run multiple batches or run consecutive batches. I think that's really important for production type roasting. Oh, look at that. Those are 2 yellow. Those are no good. We're gonna get rid of those. George says both the Tidal Basin and Kenwood have been full bloom for 2 weekends worth of viewing, so today's rains aren't that tragic. Well, good. At least people had the opportunity to see the blossoms. I did not get a chance. I did not take the opportunity to go down. I thought about it last weekend, but then I was like, you know what? It's just too busy. I'm not a crowd kind of person. So, if you have a question about coffee and roast, let me know. We got like I said, we're running the Espresso, which is a 27% mix natural coffee with a semi-washed coffee. The semi-washed one is the one that we've been drinking that has some really nice cocoa powder characteristics. So I'm thinking the cocoa powdery characteristics along with a little bit of fruitiness might be a really nice way to go. So that's kind of the idea. So we're roasting a bit of that today. We've done about 100 pounds of espresso, I think. And then we're going to switch to our cold brew, which is going to be a little bit different than the cold brew we've been using. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that turns out. We're at 357 degrees. Here's the roast where we are at the moment. We're really just kind of in the middle. Maillard reaction and the caramelization of the sugars is really just getting into a roll. We probably have another 8 minutes, 40 seconds. We have about another 2.5 minutes to 3 minutes at the most. So here we're We're getting closer to the first crack. We're not at quite first crack yet. We should be hitting first crack actually almost any moment now. I'm gonna let you see this here. I'm trying not to take too much in the dryer, because you can easily fill the dryer like that, but instead, I'm only going to take a little bit out when I'm going to, if I'm just looking, I'll just look at it like that way, and I'm losing a bit of the coffee. Now, I don't know if you can hear, but first crack is starting. Like that. We're at 385 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll probably end right around 420 degrees. Power plant says, generally I find Indonesian beans to make for good cold brew. They tend to exhibit more caramel notes than, say, Central American, Kenya, Ethiopia. Oh, okay. Peter, how are you? Pokarin, that's what he said. That's a good tell you. Okay, so 397, we're getting closer. We're definitely really into the, well, we're kind of, I think, we're through most of the first crack. Like, it's not terribly loud. I don't know if it's really loud for you, but we're kind of getting through it. 402 now. And we're right at 1050. We'll probably hit 420 right around 10:30, 11:30, 11:40. So we should be dying down with the first crack now, and then we're going to be looking to go to right around 11:30, 11:40 to finish, and then finish at 420. We're at 413 degrees right now. Turn on the stir so that we don't have to worry about that. 415. Oh yeah, look at that. That's good. 420, 1134. All right, that's good. Make sure we get all the coffee out of there. That might just be floating around the barrel. Make sure that we reset our timers. That's a big thing for me, is to reset the timer, because I tend to forget. But at least when we're doing this today, I can use the show's timer in case I forget. So we're going to close the drum, let it stabilize, rise it back up. We're going to raise it to 430 degrees, and then we're going to start the roast. 430, 10:15. So you can see here falling in, and then once it all goes in, you can hear that we start the timer. I like to start the timer when all the coffee is in the drum. You can start it whenever you want. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it doesn't really matter. The important thing with any of this is that you're doing it on a consistent basis. Like, you should always be doing it the same way every time, so that you get consistent results, similar results for comparison. So now we're going to move on to the other coffee. So just this green bean here. This will be mostly a natural coffee. we're going to stage this over here and put it in. And then while we're at it, we're going to reset and do another, have this at the ready. Watch out for detritus that may be in your bags, like this piece of jute string. So you probably can hear there is sawing going on outside. More festool action. If you can see here, Matt's got cutting this white oak boards. He's got that Piaggio. He's building sideboards like a stake bed for that platform. So that's what's going on there. Not bad, not bad. Not looking nice, looking nice. All right, so then back to the roasting. So roasting here is cooling. Oh, and I'm gonna run into some problems because soon I'm gonna run out of space. I'm gonna have to think about that. Power plant says generally, okay, we said that one. I said that. Dev says first crack is my favorite part. Oh, excellent. First crack is fun. I do like it. We are now we're now 5 minutes into the roast. And we're just getting into the yellow phase. But it's just starting to turn from green. You can see that it's just, you can see that kind of mix of colors, right? I'm now concerned that the coffee will not fit in the, I don't think that's going to fit in there. Where's bags? See the empty bags? Oh yeah. All right, we had a lot of coffee now. So it just kind of finishes out, cools it, pours it out, and yeah, fairly simple, right? Fairly simple. George says everybody's funny today. At 4:20 is the right time. Absolutely, absolutely. Peter says I'll roast my 24 grams of beans for tomorrow morning as well. Excellent. And Peter's roasting the Sitio Oro Verde on the bag, whatever that means. I don't know what that. I don't know. Sitio means, I don't know. Oro. I don't know what oro, like O-U-R-O, but oro, O-R-O, typically means gold. Gold, gold, green gold. Sitio, I can't think what sitio means offhand. Keone says there's a lot of availability of green beans here in Thailand, but the rabbit hole of roasting is way too wide and deep. I mean, I understand. And I think one of the problems when you're doing something as a hobby, and I've been trying to avoid this in my own hobbies, is that you get too much in, you get too much into it. Let's say I like woodworking, right? For doing woodworking, I've got more wood at home in my garage than I'm going to use in projects than I'm using for any project. So I'm like, I have to be very conscious about not being too taken away by beautifully colored wood and buy it, right? So like, it's like when I was shaving, when I got into the double-edged shaving thing, like I was reading the double-edged forums, and the guys have all these razors, they've got all these different types of blades, different brands, they got thousands and thousands of blades, and I was like, I don't want to fall into, like I've already got hundreds of coffee brewing devices. I don't want to have more. So I'm trying to be very deliberate. And trying is the operative word. Not necessarily succeeding.
Let me close this door. Try to close this.
No, because it just blows all the dust out, so. Yeah, the fans are blowing everything out, so. Like I can feel the pressure around me, actually. Yeah, we got these big fans here, right? So that big fan actually is creating enough energy that, I mean, really, I can feel the airflow just kind of, it's always going this way, so, which is nice. Peter said, just get a popcorn popper. I think it's much easier. That's an easy way to go. I think it's a really great way to go. The only thing about the popcorn popper is you just don't have control over the amount of heat that you're applying to the roast. But then again, you have to kind of offset that with, there's the price of a popcorn popper, which is very reasonable, versus any kind of roaster that you can control the application of heat, and then maybe even fan speed, and then it becomes very expensive. Especially if you're only doing it at a hobbyist level, just for yourself. You know, it always becomes a question of like, how do you justify that on a financial sense? Now, as long as you're enjoying it, of course, that can be enough justification. And if you have a significant other, what will they think about it? Powerplant says, roasting seems daunting, but after 2 to 3 days, it's truly, in many respects, it really is. Like, as long as you understand how much heat to apply, how long it should take, honestly, like, many times, I don't really have to do a lot. Like, I think a lot of, like, coffee professional guys, especially the more geeky professionals, they want to give you these, like, ideas that, oh man, it's super, like, I have to tweak everything every moment of it. No, nobody's doing that. I don't think anyone's doing that. I don't know any production roaster doing that.
If you can't do things simply, you're not really an expert.
There it is. Can't do it simply. You're not an expert.
It's like those guys with the shakers. Have you seen that?
No, wait, what?
The new thing is the shaker.
Shaker.
That you grind your beans, you put it in this cup that they're charging like $75 to $100.
Right.
It's a cup.
Right.
And
It has a sifter in it, or no?
No.
What do you mean it's a shaker?
I forget what they
You
call
mean
it.
like a bar shaker?
So you grind your beans, your espresso beans, or
Right.
your pour over. You put it in this. It's a cup,
Okay.
and you shake it, and then you put it back in what you're brewing. It's hilarious.
Oh. I need to watch more.
Allegedly, it's how you're supposed to do things.
Do you guys know what he's talking about? I've not seen this, but I can't say that I've seen it. I mean, I can say that I haven't seen it because I don't get to watch much. I don't watch much videos about coffee. I'm mostly watching woodworking videos. It's funny because I was out with these guys that do wood, right, professionally, and they were like, And we were talking about woodworking YouTubers. I was with Pat and Ryan
Oh, nice.
yesterday, and I was like, "So who do you guys watch?" And Pat was like, "I don't really watch any. I don't like any of those guys." I was like, "Oh, you probably don't watch it because this is what you do for a living." And he's like, "Well, you know,
I bet.
yeah. So totally. And Keone says, "I see the Festool stack here." So we've got the. Hold on. Here we go. All right, we're off. We're away. We're away now. Everything's rolling. Almost got away there. This is what happens when you pay attention to other stuff. So let's see here. What is it? Keone says, "I see the Festool stack." So we've got some Festool here. I'll show you some Festool. So those of you who are not familiar, Festool is a tool company from Germany. And this is a stack of their stuff. We've got, basically what this is a big vacuum cleaner, right? So it's what they call a dust extractor that has control for, let's say, extracting the dust out of a tool, like that big TS75 track saw. And so as you can see, he's putting on a track. So we've got down here, we've got the CT MIDI-I, which is the vacuum itself. It's a HEPA vacuum cleaner, so it has a bag that filters down to 0.5 microns, and then it's got a HEPA filter that takes it down to 0.03 microns. So the air that's coming out of this little port here is really clean. And then we've got then he's got the CTVA20, which is a dust separator. So a lot of the bigger particulates are going in there. You can see it kind of moving as he's cutting, and the bigger particles go in there instead of going into the bag in the vac, so you get more longevity out of your bags. Computer says oil is gold. Okay, good. And I've got a wood collector. I bet you do, my friend. I bet you do. And so this is what they call the TS75, and this is a 75 millimeter cutting depth. So it's about 2 1/3 inches in cutting depth. It's one of their deeper cutting saws. Matt, your wife. Matt. All right, so there it is. That is, a little Festool action going on while we're roasting here. Oh. So you gotta always watch out, like I said before, for errant beans. Like this one is very easy to spot. If I can turn it. Right, you can see this one here. Very. Okay, now that's pretty cool. So we're gonna take this, and now I'm just gonna open up the valve and let the coffee flow into the bag, and we should be good. George says, I think Sitio Oro Verde is a place, maybe in Brazil, set up a resort. Ah, okay, okay. And Peter says, termites are eating my wood collection. Oh, you probably should use them or move them. And a rock collection. Oh, nice, nice. Power Plant says, rock tumbling sounds kind of lame, but it's... rock tumbling sounds kind of lame. That's kind of funny. But it's really gratifying. The initial upfront cost can be bad, but finding stones is free. Oh, nice. So do you... I don't know much about that, but I mean, like, are you... I always thought that rock tumblers were, you know, like big metal cans, right? So they would roll and tumble, polish itself on each other. So do you watch the rotation, or I mean, like, I'm just curious how does the pleasure of the rock tumbling manifest itself? Are there now like transparent like tumblers? You can watch the rocks tumble. I totally could see that. I could totally see myself, you know, enjoying rocks tumbling in a clear jar, having a cigar while, you know, waiting for it to happen. All right, 5 minutes into it, what do you call it? 3 minutes. I'm just trying to think about what I'm doing. Deb says, just fired up my roaster. Awesome. Deb, your roaster, what was your roaster? Is yours San Franciscan, is that right? Peter says rock dust is worse than wood dust. I can imagine. Do you guys use like, are there whole like worlds of HEPA filtration for rock turning or rock tumbling as there are in a wood? HEPA with raw stones will make for good polished stones. Okay. Washing off the muck and seeing the beautiful stone. Oh, I totally get it. Like when we're cutting wood, or let's say we're milling wood, like, we've kind of been dabbling in this whole, like, let's take a big chunk and take it to the mill and have them slice it into slabs. So when you take the bark off of it and you cut into it and you see this beautiful, like, figure and grain, you're like, oh my, this is really quite... So I totally get it. George says, so this morning you roasted 2 different beans, right? Both intended for espresso. No, so 2 different beans are already created in the blend. So there is... in this particular case, there is 27% of a natural processed coffee and then 73% of a semi-washed coffee. And the semi-washed is the one that we've been using on the episodes recently, especially for the espresso. We've talked about it being very cocoa powder, a lot of aspects in that, and good body, nice sweetness. So I'm taking that and mixing. That's the majority. That's the 73%. The 27% is a natural processed coffee that should give us some nice fruity tones. Like, depending on how you pull the shot with the more straight up semi-washed, you can get some of that sweetness. You can get a little bit of hint of fruit, but I want to have a little more fruitiness to it, right? So just a little more berryness. And so that's why we add the natural process to it. So, and it is what we call pre-roast blending, so everything goes into the roaster at the same time, the 2 different beans, and they get roasted and tumbled together. So by the time that you're finished the roasting, the mixture of beans are very well homogenized. So that's part of what we do here. Power Plant says rock tumblers use water, so there's, okay, gotcha. Yeah, so you end up combining some protein, so they will be combined over. Now, you can do what's called post-roast blending, where you roast everything separately and then blend, and that's in case you really have a particular need to roast different coffees in different ways or take different approaches. And again, it's one of those things where it's not that one is necessarily better than the other. I mean, there will be those, I'm sure, that are out there that will subscribe to either one being superior at different points. But it's really just a matter of, hopefully you've taken the time as a roaster to have tried them and understand them and see how they perform, and then make a decision for yourself which is the style that you like. And this works very, very well, I think. But yeah, you could do either way. You could do either way. Dev says I have an SF10. Oh, nice, nice. In the San Franciscan world, 372. We are 9 minutes into the roast. We're getting close to first crack. That's 372. In the San Francisco world, the SF10 is 10 pounds or 10 kilos in San Francisco. San Francisco speak. Peter says, I'm making a rock tumbler out of an old exercise treadmill machine. Whoa, that sounds like a big rock tumbler. Kenny says, since a lot of grinders and coffee machines are made in China or other countries outside of the US, I wonder how that is going to affect coffee hobbyists. Well, I mean, from what I saw from yesterday's notices, pretty much everything goes up by at least 10 to 18%, depending on the country. And then they were talking about Europe, how Europe has a 39% taxation on America. And then I was watching this video from this economist, American economist, on it was on Le Monde, the French news organization, and the guy was like, well, while the administration is saying that there's a 39% taxation on American products into Europe, the actual effective taxation rate is 1%. So I tend to find that when it comes to facts, truth, and news, that the current administration of the United States is an unreliable witness. So, you know, there's that. But prices are going to go up. I mean, everything that there's now tariffs across the board for every nation except for Russia. Russia does not have any.
Korea.
North Korea doesn't have well, we don't buy it. Nobody buys it. We don't have North Korea. So Russia doesn't have any, and evidently the rationale behind that the White House offered yesterday was that Russia already has sanctions, so therefore they don't need more sanctions. And whereas in countries such as Syria and Iran that already have sanctions, they impose the tariffs on those as well. So I'll let you be the judge on those things. George says that's what I was curious about. Will you roast them separately versus a blend? Almost there. Your comment reminded me that I'm like dilly-dallying too much away from the roaster. That's enough this coffee. So this one, because it's going to be in the cold room, I'm going to take it a little bit further. I'm going to bring it past 420 and really into the beginning of second crack. Now second crack should be starting right about now. There we go. All right. And voila. I'm just waiting for it to stabilize the temperature. I'm actually going to raise the temperature a little bit to 440 degrees before we start. right? So the last batch is away and into the roaster. So we have, in case you might be wondering, like, we're putting the coffee in, and now we're using this as a main temperature reference. This bean probe temperature. What that means is the probe is inside the drum and should be constantly encapsulated in the rolling beans. And because it's in contact with the beans, the center of the bed of the beans, it should be giving us a good reading for the actual temperature of the bean. Typically, when you look at roast profiles, you're going to see that they heat the drum to a certain point, and then you see this drop off in curve. That's really just the heat that's on the probe. The heat of the actual drum is not really, I mean, to a certain extent it is diving, but not necessarily that dramatically. Like, it does reach a point of equilibrium where it hits the bottom, flattens out, and then starts to rise. And that's just that's not necessarily a reflection of the interior of the drum, but more a reflection of the actual bean itself. So the bean comes in, it's not that hot. The bean is whatever room temperature that it is, and it just has to reach that equilibrium point. And as it's rolling, right, so you can see here that the coffee is rolling inside this window. And in this particular case, the drum is rotating this way. Is that right? Yeah, the drum is rotating this way, and there are paddles in the drum that are lifting the coffee and kind of throwing it out. So, well, maybe, yeah, I think it's falling down that way. I should look at it, but I can't open it now. Anyway, but the point is that as it's rolling, it's rotating fast enough so that the beans are constantly being agitated, so they're not sitting on the metal for too long a period. Just a brief moment. And what that does, and by rolling it, it's always exposed, it's always kind of like transferring heat consistently around the exterior of the bean, so that it heats evenly through and it transfers heat evenly, and you don't get scorching. Like if you ever roasted coffee in a pan, you would know that there'd be a lot of scorching in your beans. You don't see that in a roaster like this because it's always agitating. And this is true pretty much of any kind of like commercial roaster, or whether they're drum roasters like this, air roasters like the civets, or let's say, or like a popcorn popper, or a modified air roaster like the Lorings. The point is that they're always evenly applying heat to the exterior of the bean. Let me see if we can catch up on some things here. George, say you gotta run off. All right, great to see you, George. Have a great one. Did I miss other comments? And sometimes we read that in the package, only roasted on rainy days. I like that. Oh, 10 pounds. Okay, 10 pounds. Chicken on biscuits, roasted. Nice. Chicken on biscuits, how do you test for herbicides, pesticides, and insecticides before choosing blends? I mean, a lot of that, so we don't necessarily test for those things, mainly because it's one of the things where hopefully your roaster has developed relationships with certain types of producers where that is not really an issue, where you don't have to worry about things like that, because they've done proper, well, they've documented the kind of agriculture they have done on their crops. If you're dealing with organic coffees, of course, they don't have that kind of thing. If you're dealing with poor countries, they don't have that. Like, for example, Mexico is a great example of this, where if you buy coffee from Mexico, from like pretty much anywhere, especially the smaller campesinos and the trabajos, really small. They don't have the money to go out and buy all kinds of herbicides and pesticides, so they have to try to do as much bio kind of like agriculture as they can, and not necessarily because they think it's like the chic thing to do, but because they don't have the money, and they just have to make do with what they have. So, but however, those are never certified as organic because those people, since they don't have the money to afford the certification, the cost of certification, and the cost it takes on very many different forms, both from facilities management as well as crop management, to record keeping, and then just to the basic finances of paying the companies to certify them as organic. So a lot of times it's really about finding producers that are growing quality product and producers that are growing quality product. And this is another reason why it's a little bit difficult when we talk about coffee. When you hear like coffee roasters talk about, oh, we only buy, we want to help the farmer. We want to do all this stuff. And the messaging is that we're helping the campesino farmer to get a better life. Which may be the case. And if it is the case, that's a great thing. However, the problem is that, well, the problem that I see is that you've got these farmers. What I'm doing is I'm going to take this coffee out of here, put it in this bucket, because actually I need more coffee. I don't think it'll fit. Good. That's wonderful. Where was I? So, what I was saying is that the thing is that while a lot of like roasters will talk about, helping the farmer while trying to buy the best quality, I think that becomes a trickier situation because the people that are making the best quality consistently year after year are necessarily people that have better capacity for capital reinvestment. They have capital, they have resources, they have larger farms with a lot of stuff going on. They can bring on agronomists and year-long farm staff to actually oversee different aspects of coffee production. Whereas your small campesino farmer can't do any of those things, and so. And if you want to have a program where, let's say, like you are worried about pesticides or herbicides and things like that, and you want to have those under a certain level of control and a certain level of reporting, then you need to work with larger farms that are better capitalized, have more greater resources. But going back to the question, which makes that whole discussion about helping the farmer a lot more, I think, convoluted. But back to your thing about how do you know these things? I mean, it's really about developing the relationships and learning about the farms, seeing their practices, to a certain extent, going there and seeing for yourself. Because you can learn so much. You can learn a lot by on the internet and all that, and electronic communication and phone calls. But it's really good to see it and to see the practices and. Typically, a lot of people will go to farms and they'll be there for a few hours, maybe a day. On a bigger trip, they'll visit a bunch of farms. Maybe an importer's taking them around and showing them the farms that they work with, which is a great thing. But if you really want to get to know a farm, you really need to spend at least 4 or 5 days a week there, just kind of on the farm, seeing operations. Just instead of it being more of a brief tour. Show and tell, it's more like you get to see their on a daily basis operations and really see how do they really run. Because if you're there for a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hour day long tour, you could be shown anything. But if you're there for a week or longer, it's a little bit harder to put up a show, right? Unless it really is part of their operations. So that's what I would think. That's my best answer for that, I think. But we don't really test for them because we work with providers that are producers that are, well, I think they have very good reputations and very good ethical practices. So And if, let's say if we were to discover that one of them lied about that kind of thing, for reasons I wouldn't understand, because we're fairly open, then it would be a matter of just, either trying to, if we really if we really value the relationship, then try to find a way to work that out, whatever issue that may be, or there's always more producers out there. See, all this talking, all this babbling, and I'm already at 10 minutes, 53 seconds, so we're almost done again. We're passing first crack. Now we're getting past first crack. Now we're rolling towards second crack. We're going to bring it towards second crack now. And actually, this is the last batch. Stop really rotating the train because, well, there it is. Although this coffee didn't really crack it much. Like I said, we're bringing it to about 4:30, right up to second crack. 427 right now. Oh, I feel like it's not performing in the same way as the last batch. Reference just because I don't remember, because the way that it is performing now, it is different. Oh, actually, it turns out I was just looking at the log. Drop this now at 438 degrees. Look at the log. 438 was the previous batch. So, ended up, I think, theoretically at the same place. I think it's that Mediterranean. Mediterranean is the way to go. All right, let's see here. What else we have here? Anton says, I ordered some beans from Rail. Want to try them. Excellent, excellent. I'm curious to know what you think about his beans and how it is to work with them. The power plant says the farms can say whatever they want on the bag. They know they can sell it money if they can get organic. I mean, to a certain extent, and that's why I think that you really need, as with anything, it's always about finding reputable providers for your products. And this is not just true in like coffee growers, but everyone, and even though it's a big worldwide industry, let's say, and just especially, it's been a growing world, especially, but it's not that big when it comes to like industry people and conversations about farms. I mean, if farms are out, if there are producers that are out there actively, selling coffee under deceptive practices, people will find out. People will know. Like, it's not, and you just don't have to buy from them. I mean, and it's always on. I think the onus is always on the operator, right? And so, like for example, I'm the operator of Spro, and the onus is on me to find the quality of coffee that we want to offer to our guests with the right balance of quality, ethical sourcing, or best practices in all respects. So And I think and it's just like, and I think in turn it also goes back to the guest, to the consumer. On your end, it's like it's up to you to find the people, or coffee roasters, or whatever provider of any kind of product that do business and provide the level of product that you desire in the manner that you feel most appropriate, right? And so, I hate to tie back to this whole political thing, but we've seen, at least here in the United States, we've seen a certain billionaire who's evidently his net value, or his net worth, the net worth that he has in his company has dropped by over $1 billion in the last couple of months because of his activities in public and the way that people perceive him and all of that. And whether or not you believe that that's right or wrong, the reality is that people will respond to companies and businesses and individuals based on their own personal ethics. And a friend of mine owns a big company, and he's very much on the same side as the billionaire. And we have discussions, and he was telling me, he's like, the other day, he's like, well, I don't put that on my Facebook. And I was like, well, because you probably shouldn't. Like, there will be people that will probably will stop doing business with your company because you espouse things that are basically what racists and white supremacists are espousing. So if they find you distasteful, and I think that you have to look for those companies and people that are in line with whatever values you have. And I'm a little bit more vocal in my personal side of things, and even sometimes on the Spro social media we'll be a little bit vocal on that, because it's what we believe. Treating other humans equitably, equally, fairly, properly, with respect, with dignity. I don't believe that those kind of positions are something we need to hide. We need to be worried about people getting upset. Like if somebody says to me, hey, I saw your post, you're really woke. And I'm like, well, is that supposed to be an insult? Am I supposed to feel bad? Am I supposed to be embarrassed about that? I'm a follower of Christ, after all. I believe in his teachings. So that guy was pretty woke. So I think that so what I mean by all that is that you find companies and people that will that you may find yourself in alignment with. And certainly there are people that are, there's quite a few people that I know personally that are like, I'm going to go buy that electric car right now. And I tell them, yeah, you should, man. You totally should. The billionaire guy told you to go support the other billionaire guy because that billionaire just lost a couple $100 million. The billionaire needs your help. You should go support him. I don't know why they don't respond to that, but oh well. Anyway, but I think that's just a natural example, a good example in today's world of finding the people that you align with for your values, for what you want. So if you're really into let's say coffee, let's say you want to have coffee that's truly pesticide free, and you want certification that there's going to be a company out there that's going to have that finds significant value in promoting that aspect of their coffee program. And if that's really important for you, then hopefully you'll be able to find that company. At Spro, we don't necessarily worry too much about that because we're working with producers that are doing what we think of, at the end of the day, it comes down to me. What I think of very good practices, a lot of organic, a lot of biodiverse type of fertilization and farming. And then again, the other side of that coin is that Spro is really, my thought is that we're looking for not just ethical, production. People that we work with are of similar mindsets and similar values, but also for quality. Quality is what we're looking for. High quality product. Yeah, and actually one of our producers I've known for many years now, just recently passed away. Herman Mendez, really wonderful man, from Salvador. The farm that he runs with his wife. It's his wife's family's farm, and he's the only one him and his wife have been the only ones running it for the last, since I've ever known them. And unfortunately, he passed away. But he was a great man, a wonderful man, a community man. They lived in New York State or outside of New York City for many years, where he was a pediatrician. So he took a lot of care for children in their community. Just a wonderful, wonderful person. And he passed away like 2 weeks ago. And actually, I haven't really said anything about it. I didn't say anything on social media because I was like really kind of shocked. I was really kind of saddened by this. But he was a great person, really great quality, great person, great ethics, great values. He was a Catholic or Christian, if that matters to you. Not that that really was a factor in my calculus. I know some people want to have that as a standard. Serve his community, serve children. I mean, like, it's a shame. It's a shame. It's a shame that people like him pass on and the good die young. The good die young. Hey, he was older than me, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Chicken says thank you for the. Okay, sorry, I know that was very verbose. I tend to be very verbose. The power plant says even the USA organic labeling has no real business use organic pesticides, and you know that's the whole thing with. The whole thing with USDA organic is it's so. It's so interesting. Like there's a lot of books written on this, but when I got into sourcing of food products for food service, like for restaurants and stuff like that, for Spro, I learned a bit, not a lot. I mean, not everything, but you know, when organic farmers started really beating the drum back in the 1960s, the USDA and FDA were very much against it. They were like, no, we're not going to allow you to sell food to the public. And they kept at it. People started responding to it. And then after a while of people, the public started to become aware, interested, and willing to buy. The USDA changed their minds. They were like, oh, we should have regulation now for it. And then big agriculture got involved. And here's the thing, with a lot of these organic things, they require intense record keeping, intense infrastructure just to like document and track everything because they want to have the organic thing. So big agriculture, industrial agriculture can afford that because they make hundreds of millions of dollars. So spending $6, $7, $8 million is no big deal to make more profit. So the USDA came out with regulation that made it very difficult for smaller farmers to receive organic certification. And then a lot of these things you'll see like you can have big agriculture, right? And let's say this is a farm, a field, right? 100 acres, right? And this is owned by big agriculture. Let's say this sticker that says please return. So in case I don't want to lose my lids, right? So I made these stickers. Let's say this sticker is, a couple, tens of thousands of acres of farmland that are now designated as organic. And let's say here they don't do pesticides. There's no pesticides on this plot of land because it's organic certified. Let's say this is organic corn. Let's say this is corn, regular big ag corn that is fumigated and with pesticides, but not here. Because it's in the middle of it all, the pests don't get to it. So therefore, since they're not spraying it directly, this can be called organic, while this cannot. That was something I was kind of really interested to see. Or let's say, for example, you've got free-range chickens. Like if you go to free-range, you go to a lot of places to get these free-range chickens at the grocery store. You really have to. It's not just enough to say free-range chickens. You really have to like look heavily into the background of the farm and the chickens and all of that and how they're raised. Like, for example, you could have, let's say this is a big chicken coop, right? There's 100,000 chickens in here. Well, they're all in pens. They're all in coops. They're all like wherever. But there's a doorway to this little patch of grass in the middle of the coop. A doorway that's open. So should the chicken, this 3-week, extremely fat chicken, because they've been pumped up with steroids and stuff, should that chicken have the bone structure to stand up and walk, which they probably don't because they're only like a couple weeks old, and overweight, they could walk out here into the grass, into this free-range area, if they wanted to, if they so elected to do so. And that is enough under the USDA to call it free-range chicken. I'll let you be the judge. But, so those things that happen. Peter says, I don't use any pesticides in my garden. That's why nothing grows well. Bugs just eats all my... here's the interesting thing. Like, when I grow, like, food at home, let's say, like, tomatoes, I'll be honest with you, man, I don't care about that. I'm going to use the Miracle Grow, and I'm going to give me some big tomatoes, right? I'm only growing, like, 2 plants. I want some big tomatoes out of that. Mainly because I'm a coffee guy. I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the wherewithal, I don't have the temperance, I don't have the patience to go and learn biodiverse growing of tomatoes. Like my farmers that I work with, they will sit there and they'll create this bio concoction of different stuff that they've been fermenting or letting it, flourish for the last like year. I don't have the time to do. I don't have the bandwidth. So Miracle Grow it is, and then if we start to get a little bit of like if my evergreens start to get a little bit like brown, then it's time for some of that fungus detergent. So there's that. M0 says, happy Thursday. Can't hang out too long today. Be well. Oh, good to see you, man. Good to see you. No, that's a crowd. Oh, my. Oh, yeah. Anton says, April has coffee with organic certification. Awesome. Awesome. But honestly, most roasters here have such high quality, it doesn't really matter if they have organic. And that's another important point that I think is worth noting is that if you work with a high quality roaster, someone that's really looking for high quality product, typically that coffee will surpass any kind of certification. Like we would have guests come in once in a while, be like, "Oh, do you have Rainforest Alliance certified coffee?" No. Do you have fair trade coffee? No. Well, why not? Well, because we pay more than fair trade coffee. Our producers have higher standards than Rainforest. And you explain, and if they're open to discussion, and you explain that to them, the people are surprised. They're like, oh. And yeah, because those are just certifications, and they have to pay them. And one of the things that kind of put me off the certifications was my very first year. The very first year I went to in the industry, I went to the SCAA conference in Boston, Massachusetts in 2003. And I remember it was my very first show, so I was totally green, totally didn't understand what I was seeing. And totally overwhelmed. And I remember there was the fair trade booth. And this fair trade coffee booth was massive. I mean, it was like huge. It was like half the aisle, maybe a third of the aisle. And I was like, wow, man. And and the whole thing about fair trade is that it's helping the farmer, raising the farmer. And they had all these farmers there sitting at little tables where you could talk to them and meet them. And I was like, man, this booth easily costs $100,000, no less, because it's massive. And And I was thinking, if you could spend $100,000 on a booth, how much of the money really is going to the farmer? Now, I don't know if it really is bad as I portrayed it in that respect, but it certainly did not. I did not feel that something felt out of balance. Right? So I really haven't worried about certification. And then after that, I fell in with these guys that were into specialty and that dragged me into the specialty world, and it's been a downhill slide ever since. So there's that. Keone says, I really try and align myself with businesses that have good social practices and I think that's important. I think that's all right. And I think that's all right. And even if you're the kind of person that has the same values as the current president of the United States, you should align yourself with the companies that most fit your beliefs. Like I had one guy come online when I posted something on the company's social media, and he was like, "If I came in there, you wouldn't welcome me." And I was like, "No, dude, we would welcome you 100%." And he wanted his whole thing was that he wanted to make the argument that we were just as prejudiced as we say they are because we would kick him out. And I said, dude, you're always welcome. You will always be welcome. And we will treat you just as everyone else. Now, if you come in and you act like a dick to people, we will kick you out and have no problem kicking you out. And I don't have a problem kicking people out with an extreme prejudice, right? If they don't have if they don't know how to act in public, then you should be told to leave. But I said to him, you will always be welcome, and you will always be safe here. Which means that if you are going to you're going to come in and somebody's going to whatever and try to step up against you simply because of your beliefs, we would even intervene on your behalf. Despite the fact that it's what you believe is not what I or we may believe as well. Because there's something that I saw there's a movie, and I know this is kind of a cop-out in a movie, but there's that movie, The American President, the one with Michael Douglas. He had a line in there that I thought was super, super important, that about the idea of freedom of speech, right? That basically it's the difficulty of citizenship in America, the free speech in America, is that you have to be willing to defend the right of someone else to advocate for something that you have spent your entire life advocating against, and you have to be able to defend that. And I do believe in that. That's what I really believe is I have a thought, I have a belief, I have beliefs in certain ways. That people should be treated well, people should have equality, people should have dignity, people should have a future, their children should be safe, families should be secure. But if you're the kind of person that exhorts against that, I will stand in opposition to that. But I will not look to quell your voice, your ability to be able to voice your position. Because that is completely against what we are supposed to be about in the United States of America. And so that's my position. You can advocate for being a racist. You can advocate for white supremacy. I will not support that. I will not support you. I will not promote those causes. But I will defend your right to be able to say those things. I think that's something that most people in the United States do not have a grasp on. Well, okay, it's enough. Really, coffee. What do we say here? PowerPoint says, seeing an organic label doesn't mean much, but it makes the consumer feel better. And I think it serves a purpose. But it's a shame that it goes to a very large agriculture rather than local producers that could use the support more, right? Peter says, I live in a toxic environment. Organic is the least of my concerns. I'm working, oh gosh. One day you're going to have to tell us what you do, because You're in Antarctica, you're traveling here, you're traveling there, you're doing scientific stuff. We don't really know, but maybe you're working at like Pine Gap or something like that, where we shouldn't know, which is fine. Power plant says USDA and FDA. Anton says trying for organic certification to sell in the EU is not worth it for some. Yeah, and it's really not worth it for many of the farms, unless they have a sizable, and which is why you always see like organic certifications for co-ops, because they have more resources, more capital, and they spread it out over hundreds of producers rather than absorbing it all over one. Power plant says the cake is a lie. The cake is a lie. Kennedy says the interesting thing is that there is no regulations for tattooing. Mercury is used as a fixative for red ink until, wow, really? Good Lord. That's crazy. Do you make your own then, Keone? Or is that, I mean, like, I imagine that in the old days of Hawaii, that they had to use, or even in the Philippines, they had to make their own pigments. Dev says free range and cage free means nothing. It's a marketing ploy. You gotta find pasture raised. Agreed. And I like to, when I'm buying chickens like that, I like to work with local farms. I try to work with local farms as much as possible. Actually, I'm really bad. I was at the wood shop yesterday, and I was like, I'm really bad at like ordering online, because there's people that they're talking about, you can order that online. I was like, yeah, I'm really reticent to order online. I don't know why, but like I just never get it. Like I'll put it in the cart on Amazon and I never get around to pressing send. I'm like, do I really need it? If I gotta order online, do I really need it? Keone says in the countryside of Thailand, free range, and that's interesting. Like when you go to like you're in Thailand, and those of you who are not, if you go to places like Thailand or Southeast Asia or anywhere that they grow their own chicken that they eat, and you look at the chicken and you compare the chicken, at least here in the United States, we've got these broilers, right? These big chickens. And you look at the chickens in other parts of the world, and they're like all skinny, and they're all like, they all look kind of anemic compared to American chickens. You're like, what is going on with these chickens? And then you taste it, they taste all funky. You're like, what's up with the flavor? You're like, oh, it tastes like chicken. It tastes like chicken. Power plant says, I'd love to live the principles I know are correct, but convenience and flavor often... And they're fair trade for who? Not the farmer. Yeah, and that's why I think that it's important to. And the reason things like fair trade exist, fair trade certification exists, because there are consumers that are concerned about that, that want to, that are hoping that by buying fair trade coffee, they can live their values. I don't know how successful that is. Maybe to a certain extent it is. Maybe to a lesser extent it is. But the harder part, of course, and this is true with any product, whether it's chickens, beef, coffee, is that in order to really, really get the provenance that you really desire, you really have to do a lot more work. And I get it. You don't have a lot of people have work, they have families, they have kids, they don't have the bandwidth to go through all that trouble. So it's a lot easier for them to say, hey, this is free, this is fair trade organic, this is free range certified. Kenny says, I do make my own ink, all carbon based with no chemical fixes. Oh, nice. Peter says, I'm totally kicking me out of my cafe, so I have fully expected. So one of my good friends in Australia is Pete Licata, right? Pete, 2013 World Barista Champion. Pete and I have been friends for many, many years. He's from Kansas City, and when I go to Australia, his is the cafe that I'm going to go to, because I believe that because he's my friend, it is the cafe that has the least chance of me getting kicked out. I do acknowledge that in some of my videos, I have not been very complimentary to Australia and its coffee scene. So, they're like, hey, what are you doing here? Get the hell out. You should go to Starbucks. All right, fine. You have Tim Hortons? I'll go there. Dev says, in the chocolate world, fair trade was more focused on not allowing child labor. Well, I guess that's an important aspect too. Although I saw something the other day that was talking about how they wanted to repeal child labor laws in the United States. Presumably, with if they're successful in encouraging migrant labor from coming to the United States, we're going to need migrant labor, but we're going to need low-cost labor to do the work. So, children might be the way to go. Evidently, that's what they're going to do by repealing this law. Anton says, organic certification offers the ability to be thoughtful without having to think too much. Agree. And it does serve a purpose to a certain extent. Peter says, we're putting a bowl of... I'll be surprised if they let me board the plane. Be like, I'll walk into the counter at United and LAX and be like, oh, sir, could we talk to you for a moment? I was like, what's going on? He's like, did I get the upgrade? No, sir, I'm sorry, but the government of Australia has notified us that they will not let you board and enter the country. Why, damn it. Darn these Australians and their high taxation of cigars. All right, so strip search, I do enjoy that kind of thing. Actually, it's funny because since I traveled quite a bit, and there would be these random screenings by TSA, it would just piss me off, right? Just piss me off. And especially back then I was a fatter guy, right? So if I'm walking through the airport with a brisk pace trying to get to the gate, I'm a little bit sweaty. And I do have TSA pre-check, which means that I don't have to get screened. But every once in a while they want to screen you. And I don't want to, I'm not doing this screen. Kerry says, I heard the photo has already proposed, well, they have to leave the country because, that's their whole thing. But whenever I have to, if I go through the regular metal detector, no problem. But if I have to go through the scanner, I'm like, no, I'm opting out. And they're like, do you want to go do it in private? No, I want to do it right here in front of everyone because I'm a sweaty fat guy and you get to rub my balls. It's the only time I get touched, so, it's kind of important to me. And I want to prove it that I get touched. Peter says it's not random, it's profiling. I had when I used to go to Mexico, I would go fairly regularly, like once a month, once every couple of weeks. And back then, U.S. Airways and United were going to merge. And so U.S. Airways was the most expeditious way to get from Baltimore to Mexico City through Charlotte. So I flew that a lot. Upon returning, so we fly Baltimore, Charlotte, Mexico City, Charlotte, Baltimore. Upon returning from Mexico City to Charlotte, with Customs and Border Patrol, I have a 100% rate of random screenings. And I was like, and after the third time, I was like, we have to have people for random screening. I was like, random? This is 100%. It's not random. Racial motherfuckers. Ooh, I shouldn't be saying that on a live stream, should I? But here's the thing, and this is something that was told to me by a customs agent who's actually a good friend of mine back in the late 80s, early 90s. He was like, you're a U.S. citizen, which is fine, but the thing is that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are suspended when you're transiting. So the moment you get off, the moment the plane lands in the United States, taxis, parks, you get out, you transfer over to the customs agent in the lines, the immigration lines. You see the customs agent, you do all your talking with them, whatever, they stamp it. You get your bags. Habeas corpus, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution are suspended until you walk past the doors of the baggage claim area. Once you're outside of that secure area of Customs Border Patrol, you are not officially in the United States. You are not protected by the rights of the United States. Which is something that was told to me many years ago, but something they don't explain to anyone until, and then now you've seen it recently because a lot of people are being detained. And people are upset about that, and rightly so. But the reality is that you don't have any. All of that is suspended. And it's been like that for as long as that I've been alive, I think, or at least been traveling. So if you are coming to the United States, just remember that you don't really, and if you, whether you're a citizen or not, you don't have any rights until you leave that area. It's kind of messed up, but I think that is a situation that is normal throughout the world. The power plant says child labor in developing countries can be a lesser of two evils. Peter says there'll be elements, and then I'll be escorted out again. What is? Oh my gosh! Oh!
I had to buy a whole bunch of them.
Thank you. Matt just brought me some Reese's Easter eggs that he got at Hershey Park yesterday. I'm going to eat one of these now. Abdullah Al-Santli says, "Hey man, happy to see. Any plans to come back to Saudi or plans of opening a coffee business in Saudi? Considering the boom of coffee there, it's shops. Well, if you want help opening a coffee shop, let me know. I'm happy to come out. I love it. I love it in Saudi. Saudi is a wonderful, wonderful country. I wish that my fellow countrymen weren't so misinformed, misled about Islam and Muslim culture and the Middle East. I had a conversation the other day with a friend of mine from California about just that. He's like, those Muslims, they want to kill us. They do. Muslims don't want to kill us. They just want to have families and have their families be safe and have good children and have a good future. But the ingrained hate is so heavy here. So terrible. Hershey's Reese's eggs. But if you want to start a coffee shop, let me know. I'm happy to come back out. My thobe is at the ready. All right, well, it's 11:30. I got to go manage all this coffee. So, good to see all of you. Thank you very much for tuning in. Sorry for the long babbling. Back again with another episode of the Coffee Q&A tomorrow. So, hope you have a wonderful day, wonderful evening, wonderful night. And see you next time.